Hi guys, Mrs. Denton here, back with another First Chapter Friday. It is still Hispanic Heritage Month. That runs from September 15th through October 15th. And so our final book for the month is the one I have right here. And there are lots of them. You can see them actually on display in the library until next week. And then when it's fall break, I will be switching those out. So this last book, though, for the read aloud is Sal Gabi, Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez. This is actually a part of the Rick Riordan Presents. So it actually comes from the writer of Percy Jackson. All those different Percy Jacksons, the Heroes of Olympus. There's several different series that he has. These are books that he actually promotes that kind of have similar, I guess, interest. He thinks some of his own readers of his books would actually enjoy these certain books that they choose to publish. And so this is a branch of the company, a publisher's company, that actually promotes particularly multicultural stories that get into mythology and folklore for those particular countries. So that's why he helps, this writer, Rick Riordan, actually helps choose what books will be published. So that's kind of interesting. We have a few of these in the library. But for today, we're going to read about Sal and Gabi and how they break the universe. Page 1. There's all sorts of bad advice out there about how to deal with bullies. Ignore them. Stand up to them. Tell a teacher. Tell a parent. Tell your dentist while he's jamming your teeth back into your face. The real way to deal with a bully is to stick a raw chicken in their locker. I had my showdown with Yasmini Robles just 3 days after I had started my new life at Coleco Academy of the Arts, a magnet school in the middle of Miami. To get in, you had to have good grades, pass an interview, and either submit a portfolio for painting or writing, or audition for theater or music. You'd think all the effort someone has to go through to get into Coleco would have kept out bullies, but I guess not. I guess there are just too many of them in the world. If your school only allowed in kids who'd never pick on anyone, you'd have an empty school. Whatever. It's not like I hadn't learned how to handle bullies back in Connecticut. On Wednesday, between 4th and 5th periods, I went to the lockers along with 500,000 other kids. I stowed my history book and grabbed math so I could do my homework during lunch, then opened my bag of magic tricks and put on my gotcha stamp ring. We would be doing introductions in my 8th period theater class, and I thought I could use it to demonstrate some sleight of hand. Magic is kind of my thing. I had a minute before I needed to go, so I took out my diabetes bag and fished out my glucose meter. I thought I'd be all right until lunch, but I'd started to feel spacey and dreamy at the end of my last class. Blood sugar levels might be falling. Best to check now. As I rummaged, I noticed the tall kid next to me struggling to get his locker open. He was as Cuban as they come. Brown, built like a track and field champ, with a haircut so short you could see the bumpy skin of his scalp beneath what was left of his tiny curls. He'd wrestled with his combination lock yesterday, too, and never figured it out, so he'd had to carry a full backpack of books to his next class. I'd had trouble with my lock on the first day until I'd figured out you have to squeeze it as you turn the dial. And I'm a nice guy, so I said to him, "Hey man, my lock sucks too. The trick is to squeeze the top while..." That's all I got out before he punched his locker. The whole hallway grew a little quieter. Yasmini. I learned his name later, but why keep you in suspense? Slowly turned to look at me. He scanned me up and down, doing some tough guy calculations to figure out if he could take me. Apparently he thought he could, because he stepped up to me fast, ferocious, chest out, arms wide. He'd been in a lot of fights, judging from his flat as a shamrock nose. Just come back from safari, white boy, he asked. I mean, if you even are a boy. Let's take a second to break down this insult. The safari crack was because I had on canvas cargo pants and a cargo vest, each with 4 pockets brimming with gadgets and tricks of the trade. Pretty much all the clothes I own have tons of pockets. I'm ready to perform at any time. You never know when the world is going to need a little magic. The white boy crack was because, I guess, to him I looked white. Back when I lived in Connecticut, kids were telling me to go back to Browntown all the time. But I was in Miami now. New place, new rules about skin color. And if you are a boy, I cut my hair pretty long. It gave me a place to hide stuff in the middle of a trick. And to this caveman's mind, calling someone a girl was an insult. Whatever. I tried the My Little Pony approach to handling bullies. Sorry, just trying to help. And I started to walk away. He body blocked me. You wanted to help me? Why would a sandwich like you think I'd need your help? Now I looked him in the eye. Your locker's still locked, isn't it? I probably shouldn't have said anything, but he called me a sandwich. Some insults you can't let slide. And in response, he did what bullies do. He slapped my diabetes bag out of my hand. It hit the ground with a glassy crunch. My stomach crunched right along with it. That pack contained my insulin, my syringes, my blood glucose meter, my sharps disposal container for used needles, my Band-Aids, and a fun-sized bag of Skittles. If he broke something important in that pack, I could be in real trouble. I knelt down to pick it up, my hands shaking as I reached for the bag. I tried to relax. I closed my eyes, breathed slowly, and remembered what Poppy had said to me after Mommy died. Fear is your body trying to tell your brain what to do. But the brain is the king of the body. It calls the shots. I opened my eyes slowly, the way the good guys in movies do when they've just figured out how to beat the villain. I noticed that the bright young scholars of Galeco Academy of the Arts had formed a ring around Yasmini and me. This crowd didn't seem as bloodthirsty as the ones in my last school had been. In Connecticut, kids hooted like in Planet of the Apes whenever a fight was about to start, jumping up and down and beating on each other in anticipation of someone getting wedgied back to the Stone Age. These kids looked kind of grim and quiet, like this was some boring school assembly they had to attend. Well, from my perspective, it didn't really matter whether they were enjoying themselves or not. They had me surrounded just the same. I was trapped. Wait, no, that's an excuse, and I don't like to lie. I don't lie to myself. I could have pushed my way out of there if I'd wanted to. But now all eyes were on me. I had an audience, and I'm a showman. A showman. Yasmi stretched his fingers wide before he made two fists. Time to die, little man. Stand up. I stood all right. Got right in his face. Time to die, I asked. Time to die, he repeated. Like the dead chicken in your locker, I asked. What? See, that's the real secret of dealing with bullies. Change the game. You thought we were going to fist fight, Mr. Tough Guy, but surprise. Suddenly we're talking about murdered poultry. The dead chicken in your locker, I said, explaining it to the crowd. That's the real reason you didn't want to open it. You didn't want anybody to see your dead chicken so they couldn't know you keep dead chickens in your locker. Because, I said, turning to face Yasmini again, what kind of weirdo keeps dead chickens in his locker? Stop saying dead chicken. Everybody laughed. That probably would have sent Yasmini into a berserk rage if some girl hadn't shrieked, Blood! She was pointing at Yasmini's locker. What? Yasmini asked again. He and everybody else looked up at his locker, and yeah, there was watery pink blood leaking from it. The kind you find at the bottom of styrofoam meat packages. Not a lot, but enough to drip from the bottom of the locker door and pull on the floor. And it only takes a tiny bit of blood to freak people all the way out. Not me, though. I mean, I didn't know Sangre de Polo was going to come dripping out of his locker. But it wasn't exactly a surprise either. I could work with it. Open it, I said to Yasmini. Unless you're too chicken. If he hadn't been completely bewildered by what was happening, he would have gorilla rushed me for sure. Instead, he walked over to his locker and tried to undo the lock. 2, 4, 7 yanks on it, each angrier than the last. Then he punched his locker door again and said, I can't open this stupid thing. I keep trying, but I can't. Here, let me. He took a step back to let me through, but not without asking, What? How do you know my combo? His combo was still taped to the back of the lock. About as sharp as a bowling ball, this Yasmini. I looked at him over my shoulder with spooky eyes and replied, Fool! I am a magician. I can read your mind. Then I spun the dial with fast fingers, clock, then counter, then clockwise again. I tugged the lock open dramatically and with a flourish removed it. You want the honors? I asked him, stepping aside with a gracious magician's bow. Yasmini, Bro had gone full autopilot by now, stepped forward and opened the locker door. Every kid behind him on tiptoe, watching, waiting. A whole raw chicken like you get at the grocery store with bumpy yellow skin and no head flipped out of his locker, landed on its chicken butt, and went splat. Kids scattered, screaming. Adults would be here any second. Yasmini did a 180 and looked around wildly. He didn't have eyes anymore, just fear. I didn't put a dead chicken in my locker, he yelled. You gotta believe me. I believe you, I said. Of course I did. It was I who had put it in there after all. Abracadabra. Chicken plucker. Alright, so that was chapter 1 of Sal and Gabi Break the Universe. This one sounds funny, kind of silly. and I'm sure there'll be some kind of mystery, maybe some magic involved. Again, it is the author that does mythology, so who knows what adventures will go on in Sal and Gabby Break the Universe.